the complaint merits an ethical violation.
Bob, maybe this helps. We're a county agency funded, if we are at all, by the county. I mean, we can't look to anybody else for funding. The county is the only place we can look. We can't hire outside counsel without having some kind of funding. And then what happens is it all falls back on the attorney that we hire's sense of professional responsibility to draw that line between who's paying him and who he's actually representing. And lawyers have that issue and deal with that all the time.
I think Mr. Campbell might have trouble taking money from a third party and representing the legislature. But putting that aside, I had a complaint filed against myself before this commission. If I had run out and hired a lawyer to defend myself, would I be entitled to have that lawyer being paid for by the county?
I don't know. Did you try?
No, but I'm asking, with your interpretation of that, anybody who appears before the Ethics Commission as charged with having violated a standard of the county is entitled to representation by the county. Why would anyone expect anything less? Well, I think it's a dangerous precedent to set.
It may be, but I also think it's a dangerous precedent to try to make decisions on hypothetical situations that have never come forth. I think there is some guideline and there is some law that allows the county to pay for the defense of county legislators when they're involved in litigation.
This is not litigation.
Well, yes, it was. Yes, it was. It was litigation. There were rights and there were issues at stake that were brought before a quasi-judicial forum. Briefs were filed. Both sides were argued. Issues of due process were followed, and a decision was rendered. That's litigation. If you want to take the very narrow scope that says that litigation only occurs in the context of money litigation or in a courtroom, then I guess you could do that, but this is litigation in the broad sense. It has every earmark of litigation.
Okay.
Adversarial process, different lawyers espousing different views, arguing their positions to a third and neutral body. That is litigation.
And a third and neutral body is not here?
Yes, it is. Right here.
Okay, all right. That accepted. The issue of your rules stating that the representation is the responsibility of the party being represented. Can you explain that for me?
Yeah, I can, because I think that, let's put it like this. I think that you can show that if a county legislator is sued, that it is their responsibility to obtain counsel. Now, how they obtain counsel and the resources available to them to obtain counsel may be a different issue. They may go out and hire Mike or me or somebody else, a third-party lawyer. That's certainly their right. They can also, I think, avail themselves of the right under respondeat superior to say, I was in the course and scope of my employment at the time that these incidents occurred, and therefore my employer has an obligation to defend me.
You just said something very important. Is that you found that the action that they took that encompassed my complaint was not within the scope of their job. You found that the money they spent on the counterclaim was not appropriately county money. The county could not have paid for that. Therefore, that issue is outside the scope of their job.
And I think that we said that in our determination, didn't we?
So, yes.
Okay.
And so how is the defense of that within the scope of their job? How can the county defend something that is outside the scope of their job duty? If you found that it was outside the scope of their job duty, how is it that the county can pay to have that defense?
To me, this one involved in I don't know if this was your own thought process, but to me, there can be a very distinct difference depending upon the type of conflict that's involved. In this hearing that we had, the conflict was really based upon outside litigation that very clearly the county was obligated to pay for. And there's a statute that says violations of the Sunshine Law by government employees are compensable and so forth. I think we all agree on that.
Right.
And the basis of this particular claim kind of revolved around that whole thing. So in my mind, it was not necessarily outside the scope. Now, I agree with Sly that it's difficult to make decisions based on hypotheticals, but I think if somebody else came along and a conflict of interest didn't involve outside litigation or anything else at all, I mean, if it was just purely a conflict of interest involving a decision made or whatever, then I think the question is closer to what you're talking about. Then I think that there's...
You characterize this action that the legislators did was a private matter. How is it that the county can defend
because that wasn't the only issue you raised. If that had been the only issue you had raised, maybe you'd have some validity. But you raised quite a few issues.
Yes, and most of them, as I recall, you'd said were not appropriately before the commission and that they would not be heard.
I don't know about most.
They were heard, but you know
most.
that the issues you would not be making determinations.
I guess my question is, what is it? And I'm going to go back to my original position. I'm not even sure that this is appropriately or properly before us, because what we are basically doing is having an ex parte conversation with you when there is nobody here from the other side to give us anything else. So if this ripens into something that we have to look at seriously, then we will have already heard from you without any balance from the other side. And I think that there's a problem with that. That, to me,
then we don't need to discuss
problematic.
Anything that... I'm just presenting this to you as feedback about what I saw as the pitfalls of the hearing that we just had.
Okay, so as feedback then, does that mean that you are not looking for any action? This is an educational process?
No, I do ask the commission to refer this matter to another authority.
And who would that other authority be?
The Attorney General or the Prosecutor's Office.
Because you believe there is some criminal act?
Yes.
And the criminal act would be?
It's in there.
Tell me what it is.
The criminal act is perjury before this commission about the dollar amounts that were expended, the violation of county charter, which the concealment of this expenditure was conducted.
And all this is spelled out in pages 1 and 2 of your daily here?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to go back to what Sly was saying is in our form and our process, and now I'm really getting uncomfortable because this is not a verified complaint, and we don't have another side here to represent this. And really, if you truly believe that there's a criminal matter here, it is your right. It is your obligation to take this.
Yeah, and it's
your right and your obligation.
I saw it as the Commission's right and the Commission's obligation to look at some of these issues that have not been settled, and now I raise as unsettled the dollar amounts. I have verification in there of the dollar amounts. If you feel that you were lied to in the hearing because of the evidence I present, I feel you are obligated to refer this to a higher authority.
Well, I think what they're saying, Bob, is we can't just take this as gospel because of the nature of this commission.
Verify every document that's in there.
Well, let me suggest that maybe this is the way to go about this. Give these back to Bob and invite him to file a new verified complaint, asking us to either reopen the previous hearing or conduct a new investigation or whatever, so that we actually invoke a process.
Exactly.
Instead of in all fairness, I mean, we're listening to you, but in all fairness to everybody, we need to hear both sides of everything.
I hear your decision, and I also heard you state earlier that you felt that it would be necessary for you to follow up to see if your prior recommendations had been followed. I mean, without your at least knowledge that the decision that you made for the legislators to pay back the amount and work out the contract and do this separation issue, that you have no idea whether this commission is effective at all. And I think you need to know whether this commission is effective, because you're going to go asking for